Well, blessed Wednesday to you as we come with your daily encouragement. And if I don't know what your view of the book of Revelation is, I'm trying to give you my insights that I've learned. I used to hold to the very literal view, but it's in chapter 13 that that literal view starts to fall apart because many have argued that you got three and a half in one chapter and you got three and a half in another chapter. They add up to seven. Well, we're going to come across another three and a half and the chapters following, and that adds up to more than seven. So either they are symbolic, I think, or they're literal. And I know some people kind of go slippery into literal seven or symbolic seven or literal three and a half and all those other things. I'm just going to say, let's read it for what it is. And here we're going to have that three and a half, that 42 months, that 1,260, which makes up the times and a half that we've been working with. And this time we're going to get the vision, and this is probably one of the more popular chapters of the book of Revelation, the story of the beast. We'll wrestle with that now. And we'll get another number that's very popular, the number 666. And I'll give you my definition of that, but let's read what the text says and we'll get to it. The first beast. And that's what my chapter says, so meaning there's going to be another beast. Typically, a beast in the book of Revelation, as in other Bible prophetic books like Daniel and stuff, symbolize a nation. And one of the most famous books of politics from the English world is the book by Thomas Hobbes called Leviathan, a famous beast from the book of Job. Some have compared it to a whale, but it is a large animal. And it says, according to Job, that the Lord made it for the sport of it. It is just a big animal. But kingdoms, nations were always described as beasts who would challenge the rulership of God. And so what we have here is a beast in this chapter. So it says in verse 18, then the dragon, which of course has been the devil, the serpent, took his stand on the sand of the seashore. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and at its horns were 10 diadems, and on its heads were blasphemous names. Now, many have argued that the beast that is rising up is symbolic of Rome. Even those who take this book very literally as a future event will say that there is going to be a kingdom like Rome that will rise up. And so that's where you get some of the interpretations that the European Union is a nation or nations of the beast. And so they'll take the 10 stars on the European Union flag and apply it to that. It's interesting. It might be an interesting interpretation. It might be a correct one, depending on your point of view, but I think you have to remember it's symbolic before it is literal. So we might look through history as patterns of nations that have acted like Rome. Maybe nations like the Third Reich in Germany, or Napoleon in other wars, or you can just start to apply all of these things. But in its totality, this is considered the symbol with the 7 mountains and the 10 heads as this is Rome. This is Rome. And Rome wanted to have their leader to be considered equal with God. We know that from Jesus' teaching. And, when he asked about, well, whose coin does this belong to? Does it belong to Caesar's or does it belong to the Lord? And Jesus left it in the hands of the people. mean, if Rome doesn't have any power, then it belongs to God and you can use it. If it does have power, give it back to it and trade it in for shekels so that you can do your trading at the temple. He left that such an open-ended question, but it goes back to this beast that was blasphemous against the Lord and caused the cities to worship Caesar as the leader, and that's where we're going to get into the number of the beast. I think if you see that this is Rome we're talking about, we might see what the number 666 is. And the beast I saw was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. Now, you're talking about a mutant animal, and that's to be important to think about. A mutant animal, all powerful animals, all symbolic of different nations that have risen. Our nation has the eagle, and so do many other nations. Some other nations have other animals. I know, given we're close to Thanksgiving, Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be our national symbol. I think that would have been fine, although I think it would have been a very different view of our nation's strength if we had the turkey versus the eagle. But all of these things are talking about power and mutated power. In fact, they had things that could not be described. They had to be described. Well, the feet were like this, the middle part was like this. It had all of these symbols of power, but it was very blasphemous. And then the key word, and from its mouth, lion's mouth, the dragon gave it power and his throne and great authority. Now, once again, who's the dragon? The devil. Has he offered this power to anybody else? Absolutely. And the most famous one, especially when we're dealing with the book of Revelation, is Jesus himself. Every first time Sunday in Lent, when we start our Lenten journey, we usually have the reflection about Jesus going into the wilderness for 40 days. And his big temptation, at least the way Matthew's gospel ends it. Luke has it as the second, Matthew has it as the third, and that is, I will give you all this power, Jesus, if you bow down and worship me. Now think about that pattern as we go through chapter 13. Everyone gets obsessed by the number, but what we need to be thinking about is Jesus' temptation by the devil in the wilderness. That's the backdrop for this. Because the devil is going to give a nation and a ruler who is called, guess what? The Antichrist, the opposite of Christ, this power that Jesus rejected in the temptation in the wilderness. You see, this isn't that far out. It's just symbolic, talking about the story that we need to be familiar with, the story of Jesus. And that's where we get this book anchored back into more reality rather than fixing on to different ideas of when this or this or this is going to happen. Is that leader like this person, etc.? It gets it focused on the main message. Are you going to serve the Lord, or are you going to serve somebody else? And chapter 13 is all about whose loyalty you have and whose you need to avoid. And obviously, that is of the dragon. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll have a little bit on Thanksgiving, but more importantly, we're going to continue our study. And we hope that you have a blessed travel if you're going places, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.